Couple of home streaks come to an end. Connor McDavid does Connor McDavid things, and the defending champs look for a win out west. Details on this edition of Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before. Only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hey, hockey fans, welcome to Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day, and now the #1 podcast network. Thanks for making Locked On NHL Game Night your place to get a recap of the night in the NHL during the regular season and the playoffs. We are available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com, and you'll win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Eddie Garcia, an LA Kings fan out on the West Coast. He is Alex Wiederspiel, a New York Rangers fan on the East Coast. And together we're to tell you about all the goals, saves, big moments, and stories from the night in the NHL with a big assist from some of our Locked On local experts. And Alex, a light night, but some interesting things to talk about.
A lot of great storylines. I love nights like this. I love 4 games, gives you a chance to watch a little bit more. Some of those nights, like, man, Saturday nights when we're watching 13, you're just sort of flying by the seat of your pants. Tonight, you can add a little bit more detail going through. I actually was able to watch. I felt like I was able to really watch a couple of those games with a much closer eye. So I kind of like nights like this, Eddie.
Agreed. And we had some good games, and we will start with the New Jersey Devils holding a 7-game home ice winning streak, undefeated at home as they hosted the New York Islanders. And that streak would come to an end, but in exciting fashion, 3-2 loss in overtime. Islanders skate off with the win. They did lose the lead at the very, very end, final seconds, but they end up with the overtime game winner. Let's get some of the details from the host of Locked On New York Islanders, and that is Gil Martin.
The New York Islanders almost blew it, giving up the tying goal with less than 5 seconds left in regulation, but Matthew Barzal comes up with a big overtime goal, and they beat the New Jersey Devils 3-2 in overtime. This was a smart road game for the New York Islanders. They played solidly defensively. Ilya Sorokin came up big, and except for a few bad penalties that this team took, they stayed with a faster and more skilled New Jersey Devils team, kept the game close until the very end, and then were able to take a lead late on a goal by Kyle Palmieri and then win it in overtime with Matthew Barzal. So a well-coached, well-executed game plan for the most part, and Ilya Sorokin playing well is a big help for this New York Islanders team. For more in-depth daily coverage of your New York Islanders, check out the Locked On Islanders podcast.
And thanks to Gil Martin for that report. Ilya Sorokin did play really well. I thought when the Devils scored in the final moments there, I was like, oh man, Sorokin deserves a better fate than this. But I guess all's well that ends well. He allowed 2 goals on 35 shots. Bo Horvat is on fire right now for the Islanders. He gets his 12th goal of the year. And as Gil mentioned, Matt Barzal, beautiful give and go with Jonathan Drouin after Ryan Pulock almost gave it away in overtime on a blind backhand pass that was almost intercepted. But the Islanders, with a nice win for them, handing New Jersey that first home loss of the season.
Yeah, and it's worth noting too, like, the Islanders are such a strange team. I think we've established that this is probably the first time in a really long time that we've come in where first coming into this season, like, there's only one team that anyone thought was really actively tanking, maybe 2 at the most. And the one who really was actively trying to get worse has turned out to be pretty good. Like, the Islanders, despite picking first overall, like, they won that lottery. And the word from Matthew Darsh was GM of the team that they were not, this was not going to be some tear it down, start from scratch type of rebuild, right? Like, yeah, they were going to try and get younger. They had work to do around the edges of that roster. But the thing is that they had a goaltender who, when he is on top of his game and when conditions with the team are at least decent, they have not been very good as far as the surrounding conditions the last couple of years, that they're going to be competitive. And so I don't know that anyone should be surprised that the Islanders are in the thick of things right now. And that's a couple of good games in a row for Sorokin. And if he's going to play like that, he did not start the season particularly well. I don't know what these numbers will bring his season totals up to, but coming into the night, he was at .893 save percentage on the season. That's obviously not going to be good enough over the long term if the Islanders want to make the playoffs. But if that number is trending up, which it looks like it is based on these last two performances, boy, it's going to be hard to dispute that the Islanders are going to be right in the thick of things right till the end of the year. And remember, a not very good version of the Islanders played kind of deep into last season, right? So this is kind of wild, Eddie. The Islanders, I think, were being written off by a lot of folks as sort of a kind of wish casting their way into competition. And right now, they look like a team much closer to the one that we saw the last couple of years rather than last season.
So for the New Jersey Devils, first home loss of the year. Of course, we knew eventually it was going to happen. They almost pulled this one out, but not enough. Let's get a report, though, from the host of Locked On New Jersey Devils, and that is Zach Berman.
Mitchell Center, the Devils are no longer perfect at home. A bummer, but a game that arguably was the best out of the 3-game homestand they played, and yet that's baseball, Susan. That's hockey, Susan. The Devils lose 3-2 in overtime to the New York Islanders. Matt Barzal wins the game at OT for the Isles, but a lot of positive to take out of tonight. The Devils played very well. Ilya Sorokin stood on his head. Couple caveats I'll get into on the pod tomorrow, but I think everyone in the building is leaving on a high because Shimon Nemec tied the game with a bomb from the point with 4.7 seconds to go. Another moment that this team is just I'm speechless at that. I'm speechless from that. I don't know what else to say. They lost 11-4-1. Oh well, 23 points. Hit the road for Chicago. Get back on track.
All right, and thanks to Zach Berman, who feeling okay after that loss. And as he mentioned, they are tied with Montreal and Carolina with that point. I should say they have 1 point more than Montreal and Carolina with that point, 23 points. So they have most points in the East by getting that extra point. Interesting night, though, for New Jersey. They start with a quick goal, and then they score in the final seconds of regulation. A power play goal from Timo Meier 38 seconds in when the Islanders had too many men on the ice penalty. How do you have too many men on the ice on the first shift of the game or the second shift of the first line change of the game? That was interesting. But Simon Nemec's first goal with the goalie pulled, as he mentioned, a shot from the point that goes off an Islanders player and in with 4.7 seconds left to get them a point. Fourth straight overtime home game, by the way, for New Jersey. But yes, despite the loss, still having a fine season.
Yeah, Simon Nemec is an interesting part of this story as well, because again, there's no substitute for being able to play with confidence. And he played 20 minutes at 5-on-5 tonight, and I'd have to check, but that would feel it to me like that might be a season high. He's been kind of up and down that lineup. And if they're going to get a player closer to the one that they got tonight, New Jersey is I think that's the spot that they've been kind of looking for, is can they have another guy who can anchor a pair and play really, really big minutes. We know that with Dougie Hamilton and Luke Hughes that they'll be able to do that. And we know they've got some really strong defenders down that lineup who are going to kind of eat those minutes against the bottom six. But that second pair, if Nemec is sort of emerging as that guy now, the guy they thought he was going to be, and we know it takes longer for defensemen to develop sometimes, even as a former top pick, he was number 2 overall a couple of years ago. That's a good sign for New Jersey, regardless of what happens tonight. So I'll be following that closely, because he had definitely been the source of some criticism, which the Devils have not been the source of much criticism this year, and he'd been kind of centered around it. So if he's going to be able to build off of that, that's huge for the New Jersey Devils.
All right. Alex's New York Rangers break out on home ice. We'll get reaction from a couple of different sources. That is next on Locked On NHL Game Night. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or you want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who'll score the next bucket So fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we now move to Madison Square Garden, which has been a house of horrors for the New York Rangers so far this season. 0-6-1 coming into their home game against the Nashville Predators with a total of 6 goals in those 7 home games. Well, the Rangers score as many goals in this game as they had on home ice so far this season as they beat Nashville by a score of 6-3, and there was much rejoicing at MSG. Let's check in with our local expert, the host of Locked On New York Rangers, and that is John Chick.
This Ranger lineup basically just got new life breathed into it because of 2 things that happened before the puck even dropped tonight. And that would, of course, be the promotion from Gabe Perreault from the Hartford Wolfpack to the New York Rangers, and also the return of Vincent Trocheck. As far as Gabe is concerned, I mean, this pretty much had to happen. We talked about this in the last episode of Locked On New York Rangers, but this team is so badly in need of an offensive spark, and Gabe's obviously done great with the pack. Might be a little premature to call him up, but I think given all the Rangers' offensive struggles, it was certainly warranted. And as for Trocheck, I mean, just a do-it-all forward for the Rangers, one of their better players, one of their more important players, somebody that wears a lot of different hats for this Ranger team, and he looked right in his element. Gabe ends up with his first career point in the form of an assist. Trocheck is out there with 2 assists, but honestly, points aside, those are great and everything. The look and feel of this lineup, both on paper and then in practice, once the puck actually dropped tonight, everything just looks so much better, so much nicer with those 2 added to the lineup. What looked like a paper-thin forward group suddenly looks quite a bit deeper, quite a bit more dangerous. Going to talk about in the next episode of Locked On New York Rangers. Do not miss it.
All right, thanks to John Chick for that. Also, Artemi Panarin, since he shaved his head, the whole team should shave their heads, by the way, if they're all going to play this well. But Artemi Panarin had a couple of goals in this one, numbers 4 and 5 on the season. And I know that, Alex, you wanted to talk about Alexis Lafreniere, who scored a power play goal for his 3rd of the season.
Yeah, he had 3 points all in the second period. He also set the screen on the Vladislav Gavrikov goal, which that net front presence the Rangers have desperately been missing since Chris Kreider left. JT Miller had kind of been trying to play that role, but the truth is that's really not the role the Rangers want from him. Like, they need much more of a play driver from JT Miller at 5-on-5. That's huge for Lafreniere. I have a ton of thoughts on this game, but the one thing I will say about Lafreniere, if you go back a year and a half ago, right? Like, when it looked like he had broken out and had become the player the Rangers finally expected him to be. People forget he had 14 points in 16 playoff games when the Rangers made that run to the Eastern Conference Finals, ultimately lost to the Florida Panthers, the eventual Stanley Cup champions, in 6 games. There were multiple moments where Lafreniere looked like he was actually built more for playoff hockey than regular season hockey. And part of that was his decisiveness. There is a goal that I constantly go back to, and I don't remember which game. I want to say it was game 2, but I don't remember for sure. But it was game 2, I think, of the Eastern Conference Finals, and he read a play that was happening in the neutral zone absolutely brilliantly, saw that one of the guys back trying to make a play on the puck was not a defenseman, but was Vladimir Tarasenko on a broken play. And Lafreniere attacked, knowing that if he could get to the puck first, he was going to basically be going one-on-one with Vlad Tarasenko rather than the defenseman. It's a brilliant play. He splits the 2 players, scores the goal on the breakaway. That is the Alexis Lafreniere that the Rangers need. This was the first time tonight that I have seen that player in a year and a half.
Mika Zibanejad gets his 5th. Vladislav Gavrikov his 2nd. Will Cooley gets his 4th. And Igor Shesterkin must have thought, my God, what is all this support I'm getting? I can actually let in a few goals and we'll still win. He allowed 3 goals on 30 shots in this one. I mean, we've got time. Any more final thoughts before we switch over briefly to the Nashville Predators side of this?
Yeah. I guess I'll unload the chamber a little bit. First of all, I will say the third goal shouldn't have counted anyway, because I'm pretty sure Lafreniere was high-sticked by Matthew Wood on the play, and Matthew Wood then scores the goal. A little bit of an odd.
Don't get greedy, okay?
Hey, I'm trying to keep Shesterkin's save percentage down, Eddie. Still trying to get this man another Vezina.
He's got plenty of money. He doesn't need to worry about his stats.
That is true. He is set for life. But I will note on a couple of things here. The first is that what a shock that having a number 2 center who is arguably one of the top number 2 centers in the league and sometimes plays more like a low-end number 1 center. Who knew that missing that guy for 14 games would make such a difference? Having him back was critical. Vincent Trocheck sorely missed by the Rangers. It allowed them to reunite the Lafreniere, Panarin, Trocheck line that was 2 years ago probably the best line in the NHL in the regular season, and certainly was not that last year, to the point that they eventually got broken up. But you could see the chemistry between those guys. The one other thing worth noting is that I think the Lafreniere, Cooley, Laba line, they scored a goal tonight, and I think it was just it was a mid-change type of thing where all three of them were out at the same time. Like, I don't think Sullivan went in and blended the lines at all, but because they had a little bit of chemistry together already, they were able to create a goal off the rush. And I think that's critical for the Rangers, because in years past, when they've made the playoffs, one of the problems that they've run into is you've run into coaches who seemingly can't really make adjustments. Like Peter Laviolette was very, very stringent on keeping his lines together. And by the time he got to a point where he felt like he might need to go and throw these guys into the blender, a lot of these guys just had no chemistry together. I think early on, might actually wind up being a benefit for the Rangers if they get to that point where they have to make those types of adjustments where it's like, okay, hey, the Lafreniere, Trocheck, Panarin line is not working. We got to try something different. Well, now Lafreniere, Cooley, and Laba, I always want to say Laba have played together enough that line actually has some chemistry. So I think that's going to be important if the Rangers wind up being a postseason team. That is far from a guarantee at this point, though.
I always want to call him Lava because I thought that's what his name was the first time I heard it, which would be, yeah, it would be kind of cool if my name was Lava. I mean, anyway, you mentioned Matthew Wood as we briefly shift to Nashville. He had a very quiet hat trick in this one. His first career hat trick, goals 4, 5, and 6 in the season. That was all the offense for a woeful Nashville Predators team. UC Saros allowed 5 goals on 12 shots before getting pulled. And now Nashville gets to stew on this as they fly to Sweden to play in the Global Series coming up on Friday. And I know that Andrew Brunette was a pick by a lot of people to maybe the first coach fired this season. It could be trending that way. It is just, I mean, I'm sure Nashville thought, okay, you know, we've had it up and down year. We're going to go into New York. This team can't win at home. They can't score. At least we'll get this win as we head out of the country. No, that did not happen. This is a team. We wondered, right? 2 years ago, they're in the playoffs. Then in the offseason, they make the changes. Stamkos, Marchessault, these guys. And then they flop and they fall on their face. So we're thinking, okay, which is the real team? They decided to stick with this group. They took another shot at it, and it is not working for Nashville.
This was a game that I had circled on my calendar for a while, Eddie. I wrote an article for Yard Barker way back, if you go all the way, I think in May. And I was looking at these two teams because if you look at last season for both of them, they had high expectations, right? Both of them had Hindenburg level disaster of a season. And I was sort of looking at, well, what are these two teams looking at and how are they going to approach it? And more importantly, who can they emulate? And the Rangers, I think, have kind of gone the Winnipeg Jets route, right? When Winnipeg went and hired Rick Bowness after their disaster season in 2022, I want to say, or 2021. And they hired Rick Bowness because they decided we got to lock down defensively. This was an embarrassment to defensive hockey. And it took them a long time to really build to that. Remember that first season under Bowness, they got knocked out in 5 games in the first round by the Vegas Golden Knights. But the next season, they were flirting with a President's Trophy again. And then they have now since won one since Bowness has retired. But so I think that's the model that the Rangers have wanted to try and model themselves after is we want to go the Rick Bowness route. I couldn't really figure out who Nashville was trying to model themselves after last season's disaster, because the truth is there's not a lot of precedent for going out and making those types of big ticket acquisitions and then after it not working, doubling down on it and trying to get it to work again. So I have a lot of concerns about Nashville, and based on some of the reports we're hearing, they might be one of the first teams that starts kind of looking at getting younger this season, because it just has not worked with those guys, with this group. And that's a real shame, because there was a lot of excitement around Predators hockey when they won the offseason. And I will say this, I'm going to stand for Barry Trotz for just a minute here. You can't say he's not interesting. He has made bad choices at times, but you can't say he's not interesting as a GM, because he is not conservative. He is not a shrinking violet. That guy goes for it. And now he might have to make some adjustments to his strategy.
All right, Connor McDavid scored an absurd goal, even by his standards. We'll get into that next here on Locked On NHL Game Night. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, mood, even my skin. That's why I'm using DripDrop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. DripDrop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. It actually tastes amazing. My go-to flavor is fruit punch, and it's become my secret weapon for staying sharp and energized through long days. Hydration has become non-negotiable for me. DripDrop helps me feel better, calmer, and honestly just better overall. Right now, DripDrop is offering podcast listeners 20% off their order. Go to DripDrop.com and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL. That's DripDrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 20% off. Stock up now and keep your body and mind performing at their best with DripDrop. All right, our next game was very interesting as the Edmonton Oilers were hosting the Columbus Blue Jackets. Edmonton coming off a 9-1 behind kicking in their last game at the hands of a very, very good Colorado Avalanche team. But still, when you lose 9-1, you expect that team to kind of come out with their hair on fire the next game. That really wasn't the case in this one. But in the end, somehow, the Oilers pulled out a 5-4 overtime victory. Let's check in with the host of Locked On Edmonton Oilers and find out about this one. This is Nick Zareris.
Guys in fights. Those who see their own blood curl up in a ball and start to cry, and those who get up and fight back. And tonight, after being battered and bruised Saturday against the Avalanche, tonight the Oilers down early to a okay team at home, with everybody feeling like the inevitable was coming, that the Oilers would capitulate yet again. Instead, when all hope was lost, who came through to save their butts one last time other than Connor McDavid with a pair of scintillatingly exciting goals? You get a lucky one, a Jake Wallman shorty, and then you spring Jack Roslovic in overtime. And for at least one night, we can all exhale. We can all take our deep breaths. And the season is not over. There's a lot of work still to be done, but for at least one night, Oiler fans can take a deep breath and say, Connor McDavid can dial in and win a hockey game almost by himself.
And he's right. That's how good that guy is. Thanks again to Nick Zareris, the host of Locked On Oilers. But Connor McDavid scored goals 6 and 7 on the season. The first one, a spinning, twirling backhand goal that literally caused the defender to melt in his skates and just crumble to the ground. And then the backhand shot, far post was, even for him, insane. Then he scored another one. But the Oilers also, I thought got a lot of help from the Blue Jackets in this one, to be honest with you. The Blue Jackets had a power play, up a goal with 2:18 left. All they have to do is keep the puck in the zone and just play keep away. They didn't have to score another goal. I realize if they score, that's probably the game, but they could have taken the game under 20 seconds by just passing the puck around and running the clock out. And, oh, by the way, the Oilers started that penalty kill without McDavid and Draisaitl on the ice. So if they just play keep away, in the zone, they can keep them off the ice. They don't let the Oilers get a line change. And the Oilers weren't being aggressive. They were just sitting back doing a penalty kill like it was, in the middle of the game. Now, maybe that would have changed as the time ticked away. But instead, Columbus decides, no, let's try and score. They shoot the puck. It's saved. The Oilers get possession. They clear the zone. On come McDavid and Draisaitl, and now the puck is in the Blue Jackets' own end. Then they turn it over, and it leads to the Jake Wallman goal that goes off of Matthew Olivier and in, and suddenly we're tied. So I thought the Blue Jackets blew it by what they were doing at the end. I know this isn't necessarily a sport where you see a lot of play the clock and run the clock out, but I thought that was I was watching the game, and I'm thinking they don't have to shoot. They can just play keep away this whole time and pretty much run the clock out. Then in overtime, somebody goes for a line change, and the Oilers get a breakaway, and Jack Roslovic from Columbus, Ohio, former Blue Jacket, ends it and wins it for the Blue Jackets. So while I give Connor McDavid full credit, and I give credit to the Oilers for not quitting on this one, they got a lucky break late, I thought the Blue Jackets absolutely helped them out in this game.
This has been a brutal West Coast stretch for Columbus. They have nothing has really worked, and it's worth noting too. I wonder how much they had left in the tank at the end against Edmonton, and when you just don't have it, and Edmonton turns it on, I can see how that could become a problem. One note for if you're a new hockey fan, right? And I know sometimes we forget that there are a lot of diehards out there, but if you're a new hockey fan and you're wondering, well, what was so special other than the twirl? And it's also the incredible hard backhand, because there's no goalie in the world for the most part who's going to be able to save that, because seeing the puck off of a backhand like that, you have no idea the release time. It's kind of like seeing a really good knuckleball in baseball. Like I feel like we don't have a lot of good knuckleball pitchers anymore, but it's like seeing a really good knuckleball. Like it's just the weirdest thing coming off the stick. And McDavid he did it in a way that I feel like I've only ever seen Sidney Crosby backhand one with that level of power and force. So incredible goal. Edmonton, I am starting to get a little concerned about them, Eddie. You probably are happy about that, I bet. As a Kings fan, I think legitimately, like, we keep thinking, when are they going to turn this on? I'm a little concerned about Edmonton.
I don't disagree with you, although I will say, as a Kings fan, I've got my own work problems to worry about. I don't need to be worrying about other teams' problems. But yes, I agree with you. We talked about it in a previous show, how the Oilers do this and then they'll turn it on eventually. But I do think there are some legitimate concerns going on there up in Edmonton. But they get a win, and they do have Connor McDavid to enjoy. My goodness. Our final game was in Las Vegas, where the Golden Knights are hosting the Florida Panthers, and the defending champs close out their road trip with a 3-2 win. Let us check in with the host of Locked On Florida Panthers, and that is Armando Velez.
The Panthers survived a comeback by the Vegas Golden Knights and salvaged the road trip at 2-2-0. And the Panthers led the whole time in this one. Big goal by Jesper Boquist and Brad Marchand in the second period, shortly after Sergei Bobrovsky made a big save on Ivan Barbashev. The Panthers had a big kill on the 5-on-3, where they had two defensemen in the box, and Gustav Forsling playing 2.5 minutes of the PK and some after that. And the Panthers were on their heels in the third period, only getting one shot on goal, and found a way to shut it out as they sweep the season series against the Vegas Golden Knights. And Donovan Zabrango with 2 points on the night, his first 2 points in his NHL career. We're going to break all this down and more on tomorrow's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, your team every day.
All right, thanks to Armando Velez for that. Brad Marchand continues to carry the load with Matthew Tkachuk and obviously Alexander Barkov out. He gets his 11th goal of the year. Sam Reinhart heating up a bit. He gets a power play goal, his 8th. Sergei Bobrovsky, though, 2 goals allowed on 32 shots. He's now tied for 9th all-time in NHL wins, 437, tied with a guy named Jacques Plante. So that's some decent company for the man they call Bob there. But Panthers holding on for the victory in Vegas and wrap up that road trip with a win.
And a much needed one as well. Florida had kind of an up and down road trip. I know I'm kind of embarrassed a little bit by the Anaheim Ducks, though apparently that's everybody in the league right now getting embarrassed by the Anaheim Ducks. But I thought with Florida, the key was they were able to lock this down when it looked like Vegas was actually going to find a way, because the Vegas Golden Knights have been a really, really good comeback team this year. They've done a like solid work in the third period. I've watched enough of their games to know that they are not really out of any game. And it was a huge stop. I think it was Pavel Dorofeev had a golden opportunity that kind of rolled up on Bobrovsky's pad in the third period, and then he was able to stop there from being any rebound on that. Huge save for Bob. He was a kind of a difference maker in this one, and Florida is going to need him because, look, the formula for winning in the NHL in the regular season is not super complicated, right? You cannot get out of the race, especially when you know you have reinforcements eventually coming. Florida needed these 2 points, could not have afforded this one getting to overtime and squandering yet another 2-point night. So did what they needed to do, and they just have to keep their heads above water right now.
All right, Vegas falling to 7-4-4 on the season. They have lost 3 in a row after that loss to the two-time defending Stanley Cup champions. Hey, if you want complete coverage of your favorite NHL team, there is a Locked On NHL team podcast and YouTube show for you. We've got one for every team except Calgary, but we're working on that. And as far as this show, Locked On NHL Game Night, we're here for you each and every night during the regular season and the playoffs to give you a recap of the night in the NHL. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe and put your thoughts on tonight's action in the comment section. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. For Alex Wiederspiel, I'm Eddie Garcia. Thanks for listening and watching Locked On NHL Game Night, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.